सलवात अला मोहम्मद व आली मोहम्मद। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मोहम्मद व आली मोहम्मद व अज्जिल फरजहुम। आज रुखसत हो रही है तुमसे ज़हरा या अली। आज रुखसत हो रही है तुमसे ज़हरा या अली। पर्दाए शब में मेरी मैयत उठाना या अली। आज रुखसत हो रही है तुमसे ज़हरा या अली। पसलियाँ तोड़ी गई कैसे ये बतलाऊंगी मैं। हश्र के मैदान में भी इस हाल में आऊंगी मैं। हाथ पहलू से न तुम मेरा हटाना या अली। आज रुखसत हो रही है तुमसे ज़हरा या अली। जब मेरी तलकीन पढ़ना याद कर लेना ज़रा। दर के गिरने से मेरा बाजू भी है टूटा हुआ। मेरे शानों को ज़रा धीरे हिलाना या अली। आज रुखसत हो रही है तुमसे ज़हरा या अली। चाहे आ जाए कयामत मुझसे ये वादा करो। जब तलक मौला मेरे शाबीर की मर्जी न हो तब तलक मेरा जनाजा मत उठाना या अली। आज रुखसत हो रही है तुमसे ज़हरा या अली। करबला में जब मेरे मज़लूम पर खंजर चले। प्यास के आलम में वो गाज़ी को जब आवाज़ दे। मैं भी आऊंगी वहाँ पर तुम भी आना या अली। आज रुखसत हो रही है तुमसे ज़हरा या अली। पर्दाए शुभ में मेरी मैयत उठाना या अली। आज रुखसत हो रही है तुमसे ज़हरा या अली। तुमसे ज़हरा या अली। सलवात अला मोहम्मद व आली मोहम्मद। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मोहम्मद व आली मोहम्मद व अज्जिल फरजहुम।
सलवात पर मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद व अज्जिल फरजहुम। तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है, घड़ी है। कैसे दरवाजा हटाऊं, कैसे मोहसिन को बचाऊं, सांस सीने में रोकी है, तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है। हाय बाबा तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है। हाथ में जिसके मेरा हाथ दिया था तुमने, कह के मन कुन तो जिसे मौला कहा था तुमने। मैंने हर मोड़ पे बाबा साथ उसका है निभाया। हाँ मेरा जुर्म यही है, तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है। हाय बाबा तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है। तेरी उम्मत ने बना दी है ये हालत बाबा, कोई पसली भी नहीं मेरी सलामत बाबा। सांस लेती हूँ मैं जिस दम, घुटने लगता है मेरा दम, सिर्फ मरने की कमी है, तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है। हाय बाबा तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है। कभी दरबार में पेशी को बुलाते हैं हमें, कभी दरवाजे पे आके सताते हैं हमें। मेरे ये फूल से बच्चे पूछते हैं यही मुझसे, क्या खता हमसे हुई है, तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है। हाय बाबा तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है। शर्म आती है भला तुमको बताऊं कैसे, ये तमाचों की निशा तुमको दिखाऊं कैसे। तुम ना पहचान सकोगे, देख कर मुझको कहोगे, क्या मेरी ज़हरा यही है, तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है। हाय बाबा तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है। ये अज़ियत ये खामोशी नहीं देखी जाती, मुझसे तन्हाई अली की नहीं देखी जाती। तेरा पैगाम सुनाने, हक विलायत का बताने, ज़हरा घर घर में गई है, तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है। हाय बाबा तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी देखिए घर में हमारे रोशनी कैसे हुई है, तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है। हाय बाबा तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है। सलवात पर मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली।
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على رسوله المختار النبي المكي المدني القرشي الحاشمي العبد المؤيد والرسول المسدد والمصطفى الأمجد مولانا حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد والفرقانه الحميد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل لا أسألكم عليه أجرا إلا المودة في القربى. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Tonight is that second part of our two-part series in Ayyam Fatimiyya. This is the night of the demise, the death of the Holy Lady of Light, the Lady of Heaven, Bibi Fatima al-Zahra, salawatullahi wa salamu alayha. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Tonight for the Shia, this is an extremely sad night, for this is the lady that inshallah we as the Shia depend on for salvation on that day when we have nothing left, when all the accountability on the day of Qiyamah has occurred, and now we are left helpless and we are destined for the hellfire, na'udhu billah. And then suddenly Bibi Fatima will come to our salvation. She will come and save us, and she'll say, no, Allah, this is one of the Shia that cried for Imam Hussein. For do you remember the story when Bibi Fatima was first told the story by the Prophet? The Prophet told her the story of Imam Hussein. And the story went, and when she heard the story of her son, her beloved son, Imam al-Hussein, she started crying. She started crying. She couldn't stop crying. And then she asked the question. She didn't say, is there someone going to save my Hussein? She didn't ask but a simple question. She said, is there someone who is going to cry for my Hussein? And the Prophet said to her, which gave her some calm in her heart, the Prophet said to her, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, O Fatima, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to create men that are going to cry for the men of Hussein, and they are women that are going to cry for the women of Hussein. And this is when Bibi Fatima alayhi salam says, she says, I promise, this is what brings a smile to her face, and she says, I promise that I will help those people that cry for my son Hussein. So we commemorate this extremely sad day, but more so we commemorate the sadness of Imam Hussein. That I don't want to go into Masai, but it's such a sad day that I'm going to talk about this particular part now, and we'll talk about the sad demise of Bibi Fatima a bit later on, inshallah. This is the part that we all know in Muharram. We talk about this in the third or fourth night of Muharram, where Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi, he's looking for Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein, remember, has left Makkah and he is now headed towards Kufa. And in the plains of the Arabian sands, there is a search party out by Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, and he says, find Hussein and his companions. And Hur was one of the commanders-in-chief of Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad's army. And he is thirsty in the hot sands. It is the height of the heightened temperatures. And he has been searching and searching, and eventually he comes across the caravan of Imam Hussein. And at this time he comes to the horse of Imam Hussein, and he grabs the horse of Imam Hussein and says, you must stop. And at this point in time, Imam Hussein tells Hur that Hur, as he grabs his horse and he says, stop, he says to him, Hur, he goes, may your mother weep for you, O Hur. He's upset, Imam is upset. And Hur, at this point in time, he is a courageous man, but he says, O Hussein, had it not been for your mother being Fatima, then I would have said similar words to you. But how can I say anything when your mother is Fatima Zahra? Even Hur, there's one thing that saved Hur. Hur was one of the evil men. He was from the evil side. He was from the side of Yazid, from the side of Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad. But there's one thing that saved Hur, that he attained paradise for. And that was for the love of Bibi Fatima alayhi salam that was instilled inside Hur. Verily, tonight is an extremely sad night. A night when this one and only beloved daughter of our Holy Prophet passes away. I want to talk to you about, inshallah, the situation amongst the Arabs. The Prophet, remember, he knew the fickleness of these Arabs, the same Arabs who are used to burying their daughters. He knew how cold-hearted some of them could be. So at many stages in his life, he had told the Arabs that this man, none other than this man, is going to be the leader and the guide after me. And that was none other than Imam Ali alayhi salam. One of the times when he mentioned this and he reminded the people was that at Ghadir Qum, when the Prophet had done his final Hajj, and when everyone was now leaving to go back home, he called everyone back at the fountain of Qum, which was at a point called Ghadir Qum. At this point, everyone was called back, and it was a scorching hot day. And he calls everyone, people who had gone further and were closer to their homes, he'd call them back. People who were further back, he'd waited for them in the scorching heat. And there we remember that a whole big pulpit, a whole stage was created by the saddles of all the people, of all the Hajis. And it was raised, a raised platform was produced, and Imam Ali was brought in front of all of the people. And at this point he raised the hand of his son-in-law and his cousin, and he says, Man kuntu mawla fahada aliyun mawla. Whoever I am the master of, then be it known that Ali is the master of him as well. And at this time, all the close companions were there of the Prophet. Every single one of the close companions were there. And they all came and they said to Imam Ali, they said, Oh Ali, Bakin, today is a special day. How lucky you are that you have been given this grand status of being the guardian and custodian of the religion of Islam after the Prophet passes away. For you have been given this in front of everyone. history reports 70, not even 70 days pass after Ghadir, when all of the Muslims were told and reminded that Imam Ali was the next in line of the Prophet. On the 28th of Safar, the Holy Prophet, the father of our beloved Lady Fatima, passes away from this world. And he was the last of the messengers of Allah on this earth. He had conquered Makkah back. So when they were, remember they were in Medina, and the Muslims had become so strong, Islam had grown so big and so strong that now the Prophet now went back to Makkah. He went back to the precincts of the Kaaba and he conquered Makkah once again with thousands and thousands of people who were Muslims. But when he passed away, they say that only a handful of people were there at his funeral, were preparing his coffin, were preparing to do his ghusl. And where were these people? Where were the rest of these quote-unquote loyal companions, close companions? There were only a few loyal companions who were helping Imam Ali prepare the body of the Holy Prophet ready for his burial. The rest of these people, of the prominent people and some of the prominent companions, were in a place just on the border of Medina, just on the outskirts of Medina, in a place called Saqifa. Saqifa was like a hut, like a tent. And in this place they were having discussions about who was going to take over. They said the Prophet is now left. There's a huge following in Islam. This is going to require someone, it's an important position. But hang on a minute, only 70 days before the Prophet had told these people that Imam Ali was supposed to be the guardian of Islam. But unfortunately, what happened is the prominent companions, some of the prominent companions had discussed it at this place of Saqifa who was going to take over. And because they were more affluent, more influential, even rich, they'd come to the decision that Imam Ali was not going to be the Khalifa after the Prophet, and they'd come up with the Khalifa being Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr was the first Khalif, and as he left this hut at Saqifa, he started, it was almost like mischief making. Someone said in the group as they were leaving the hut at Saqifa, they said, who's going to be amongst the first to give bay'ah to the first Khalif? And then the people said, oh, I want to go. They would follow like sheep. They'd say, oh yeah, I don't want to miss out. I want to be amongst the first. And like this, slowly, one by one, everyone forgot the words of the Holy Prophet. The Prophet had passed away, and they had forgotten the words of the Prophet that Imam Ali was supposed to be the next in line, and Abu Bakr was the next in line. Now, as Abu Bakr and Umar was one of the other companions that was there in Saqifa. He too gave bay'ah to Abu Bakr. They now were discussing and planning how they were going to deal with the leadership roles within Islam. The Prophet had not even been buried by this time, and they were not even present at the burial of the Prophet. The same companions who used to sit in a circle around the Prophet, who were amongst his closest companions, weren't even present at the burial of the Prophet. Bibi Fatima alayhi salam saw this. She witnessed this. She, being a tahira, the pure one, that not an ounce of negativity or nothing but the truth comes out from her lips. She saw this and she had to stand up. For one of the things that the first Khalif had done was she confiscated the land of Fadak. Now, one of the things that was gifted to the Prophet during his lifetime was this land by the name of Fadak. And the Prophet had gifted this to Bibi Fatema AS. And this land was a very beautiful piece of land. And there were many people that were working on this land that had employment. They had jobs ploughing this land. There were dates that were being grown on this land. It had a lot of barakah. And this was taken away from Bibi Fatema AS. The first Khalif said, this is no longer yours because you can't inherit from the Prophet. But Bibi Fatema knew her rights. She was another one of Quran al-Natiq. She was the speaking Holy Quran. She knew the Quran. She didn't know it only by words, she understood the Quran. And she went to the first Khalif and she quoted the ayah that talked about inheritance and that we were allowed to inherit. But this was not even part of inheritance, it was more a gift. And she stood up for her rights. And when finally it was agreed by Abu Bakr, the first Khalif, that we were going to give back the Fadak back to her. And the deeds to that land were given back to her. But when she had the deeds, that paper that confirmed that Fadak was hers, it was taken out of her hand by the second Khalif, who was Umar ibn Khattab. And he tore it up and said, you're not going to have this. Bibi Fatema was troubled too much after the death of her father. You know, she saw this switch in the people that were very close to her father, and she couldn't take the animosity and the deceit that she was experiencing and seeing. And she would cry every single day. She would cry and cry and cry after the death of her father. So much so that the people of Medina would say to her, they called Imam Ali and said to Imam Ali, "Oh Ali, ask Fatima to cry either in the day so we can sleep at night and have peace at night, or cry at night so we can have peace in the day." And Bibi Fatima, Imam Ali went back to Bibi Fatima and said that this is what the people are requesting. And she said, "I will cry for my father, for this is my right to cry." So Imam Ali in Jannatul Baqi, which was at that time very far away from all the people's houses. Today, if you go to Medina, you'll see that Jannatul Baqi is actually connected to the precincts of Masjid al-Nabawi, because Masjid al-Nabawi, you have to understand, has been extended extensively, from the original house of the Prophet and the original mosque of the Prophet. And in Baqi, which was the graveyard, Imam Ali, he built a small house, and that was Baytul Huzn. It was called Baytul Huzn, which was the small house of crying, of grief, of sorrow. And Bibi Fatima would go there after dealing with her children, Hassan and Hussein, and Bibi Zainab alayhi salam. She would and Bibi Kulthum, she would then go and sit in this small house that was constructed in Baqi, and she would cry and cry and cry. Now, there was a problem amongst the Khilafah. They needed bay'ah from everyone. And as a result, Imam Ali had not agreed to give bay'ah because he was the rightful successor of the Prophet. And the people knew this. And if he had given bay'ah to the first Khalif, which was Abu Bakr, then that would mean that everything that the Prophet had said was false, which was not possible. وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْحَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. Whatever the Prophet says cannot be false, for it is a revelation revealed by Allah. So it's not the Prophet's words that he's speaking, it's the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Imam Ali refused to give bay'ah, and as a result, the first Khalif, under the the second Khalif, who was Umar, under the ordership of the first Khalif, was told to go and get the bay'ah from Imam Ali at his house. And unfortunately, a whole tragedy occurred at that point where the companions of the Khalif were there. So Umar ibn Khattab, together with other companions of his, were there demanding, they were there standing at the door of Bibi Fatima's house and demanding for the door to be opened for Imam Ali to come out. And Bibi Fatima alayhi salam, as we know, was standing just behind this door. And she was standing there knowing that these people knew the status of the door of Bibi Fatima alayhi salam. How? Jibreel alayhi salam, before he used to come and give his message, before wahi used to come down, before the divine message used to come down to the Prophet, Jibreel used to come and do salam at the door of Bibi Fatima. Bab Jibreel is there just now. It is just there, the door at which Jibreel used to come down to give the message to the Prophet, used to be directly opposite the door of Bibi Fatima's house. And Jibreel used to do salam to Bibi Fatima's door before entering into the house of the Prophet to give him wahi. She would never have thought that they would do anything to the door, so she stood at the door. And when she stood there, and when they demanded that Imam Ali comes out, and it was said back that Imam Ali won't come back, they said, if we don't open this door, we will burn this door down. And she replies, will you dare burn the door that the Prophet used to do salam to every day when he used to leave his house? And eventually the unthinkable happened, whereby the door was knocked down, and Bibi Fatima alayhi salam was just behind this door. She would have never ever thought that her sacred door that was respected by Jibreel and the Prophet would have come down on top of her. For these doors were not like doors today. The doors then were thick wood, they were heavy wood. And it was such a calamity whereby the door fell on Bibi Fatima alayhi salam. There are riwayats that say that there was a nail on the door, an old nail that penetrated through near the ribs of Bibi Fatima alayhi salam, and the door fell directly onto Bibi Fatima. As it fell on Bibi Fatima, the companions were behind that door, and they actually pushed the door further onto Bibi Fatima, whereby Bibi Fatima now was in agony. She was in absolute pain. She was hurting. The penetrated nail was near her ribs. It broke the ribs of Bibi Fatima alayhi salam. But the tragedy was that Bibi Fatima alayhi salam, in her stomach, had her unborn child by the name of Muhsin. Muhsin was actually at that point killed during this calamity. She miscarried her son Muhsin. Bibi Fatima alayhi salam was hurt. Only 70 history reports. There are two riwayats. One states that 75 days after the death of the Prophet, only 75 days after the death of the Prophet, Bibi Fatima alayhi salam passes away from this world. Another riwayat says that 95 days. That's why there are two different kind of Ayam Fatimiyas. There was one during the Christmas period that we just passed, and this is the second one. There are two riwayats. We don't know which one is 100% sahih, but we can commemorate in both of these times. But only 75 or 95 days after the death of the Holy Prophet, his daughter Bibi Fatima alayhi salam leaves this world at the tender age of only 18 years. 18 years. She was, they say that this injury that was sustained at the door of Bibi Fatima is a direct reason of her weakening of her body, and as a result of her passing away. When Bibi Fatima alayhi salam's body was being washed by her husband Imam Ali alayhi salam, Imam Ali is cleaning the body of Bibi Fatima. As he's cleaning, he runs out of the ghusl of the chamber where they're doing the cleaning, and he starts crying. This was the man that held the gate of Khaybar, the bravest man ever. He was totally collapsed in the corner of the room. And when asked, why do you cry like this, Ali? He says that when I'm cleaning the body of Fatima, their ribs are totally shattered. Her body is totally brittle and broken. Imam Ali eventually, he puts the coffin around, he cleans the body and he puts the coffin around Bibi Fatima's body. And then he tells Asma, go and call the children. Let the 4 children see their mother for the last and final time before they meet her in paradise. Asma calls them. They all come running. To Bibi Fatima's body. And Imam Hussein was very, very sensitive. He was very, very soft-hearted. He couldn't take it. He runs straight to his mother. History reports in Bihar al-Anwar, Majlisi reports that there is a riwayat saying that they say that the arms of Bibi Fatima opened up from the coffin. When the arms opened up from the coffin, it was as if to say, oh, come and hug me for the last time, my son Hussein. Imam Hussein grabs hold of his mother. He cries and he cries. Imam Ali then is told immediately to remove Hussein, for he goes that in the heavens, the angels cannot stop crying. There is havoc in the heavens, for they cannot see this scene. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين فسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. Oh Allah, please accept this as a sacrifice, as a blessing on this very, very sad night of the demise of the Holy Lady Bibi Fatima alayhi salam, who was buried in the middle of the night. Who was there? Up to now, we do not know where she is buried. Our sincere condolences again to the Imam of the time. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين فسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون.
If no one else will mourn you with me, I'll mourn you alone. Your broken ribs and your burning home, all this love and solace of you is known. The tablet and the pen attest to you. The secrets of secrets rested with you. Ayah after ayah came in your name. Sallallahu alayki ya Fatima. 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 How did the door to heaven fall victim onto the flames? How did they look at you with no shame? How they raised their voice and said your name? Alhamdulillah, as much as the rain. Alhamdulillah for my every pain. Alhamdulillah, you gave me Hussein. Alhamdulillah, hamda shakirin. Sallallahu alayki ya Fatima. Sallallahu alayki ya Fatima. Sallallahu alayki ya Fatima. Sallallahu alayki ya Fatima. His silence spoke. Indeed, we gave you the Kauthar soul. Pray to God and sacrifice faith soul. Surely the barren one is your foe. The rope to Allah is taken in ropes. The hope for the hopeless struggles to hope. Maimuna, weeping when you saw her broken ribs. How will you tell your children this? How will you stand up again and pray? Did you bury her on Medina's plains? Did you bury her Bainul Haramain? Haydar replies, holding that heavy plans. She's buried in the hearts of all the mu'mineen. Sallallahu alayki ya Fatima. Sallallahu alayki ya Fatima. Sallallahu alayki ya Fatima. Sallallahu alayki ya Fatima.